This video explains how to configure VMware ESXi host and hosting controller. VMware ESXi is a purpose-built bare metal hypervisor that effectively partitions hardware. As a bare metal hypervisor, it installs directly onto the physical server, with direct access to the underlying resources, without the need to install an operating system. HostingController VMware module simply extends a more powerful web interface to the provisioning of virtual machines in VMware ESXi. In HostingController, an ESXi host can only be configured by the topmost admin, also known as the global admin. As the global admin is the one performing all control operations and cluster configurations, it is also the admin responsible for configuring an ESXi host and HostingController. Lower-level admins cannot configure an ESXi host machine. To configure an ESXi host, log into the control panel of the global admin. You will land on the dashboard. At the moment, there is no server configured in the panel, therefore it will give you a no server configured message. Before adding a VMware ESXi host machine to the panel, it's necessary to enable the VMware service globally through cluster settings. Cluster settings allow you to define globally the various services and versions that would be available to the customers. The HostingController cluster will only offer those services that have been enabled for the cluster at the top. To configure cluster settings, navigate to the top right corner and click the Configurations cog. Then go to Cluster Settings. Here click the On-Premises tab and go to IaaS Computing. Enable the status checkbox and select VMware as the provider. Configure some other settings globally if required, such as a centralized repository. Then hit the Save button. Once VMware has been defined globally, add its server to the cluster. To add a server, navigate back to the Configurations cog and hit Servers, under Server Manager. Click the Add Server button and scroll down to the On-Premises Enterprise category. Click the category. Give a friendly name to the ESXi host. This is just a hypothetical server with a friendly name. It does not have any physical existence. It only serves as a pointer to the actual ESXi host. In reality, the control server communicates with the actual ESXi host directly via API. Assign the IaaS computing role to the ESXi host. Assigning the IaaS computing role to it devotes it to the provisioning of VMware virtual machines. Then hit the Add Server and Configure button. On the next screen, select VMware as the provider and below v6.5 as the version. Provide the server API URL. This is the URL for the vSphere Web Services SDK. Specify the server fingerprint of the ESXi host. Fingerprints are a short sequence of letters and numbers that uniquely identify public keys. As public keys are large, therefore much shorter fingerprints are the best way to uniquely identify them. When trying to log into a remote computer using SSH, it's the fingerprint of the key of the host machine that is verified. In the case of VMware, fingerprints are required because OS templates are to be fetched from a repository residing on a remote Windows server. Fingerprints prove vital here in identifying the ESXi host that needs to be accessed during the process of copying templates. Specify the admin user of the ESXi host machine. This is the most privileged root user of the system. Provide the password for the root user and check connectivity. The Check Connectivity button sends an API call to the ESXi host machine that establishes a successful connection between HostingController and the ESXi host. Failed connectivity prevents a valid connection from being established. To investigate a failed connection, you can always visit the logs. Once connected, select the virtual machine's root folder. This specifies the storage location of all virtual machines created by HostingController. To store virtual disks, ESXi uses data stores. Data stores are logical containers used by ESXi hosts to store virtual machine files. Then provide the network information. Select an external network. Provide the preferred DNS. Provide the alternate DNS. Then specify archiving settings, if required. These settings are mainly required for archiving purposes. By default, when a virtual machine is deleted from the VMware web client, it deletes the virtual machine from the list of virtual machines along with its VMDK file. To customize the behavior for better management, the VMDK file for the deleted machine can be moved to a designated folder. Later, if a customer asks to restore its deleted virtual machine, it can be done easily by restoring the virtual machine using the virtual hard disk file. Then specify the maximum available limits. These are the overall limits applied to the ESXi host. These limits represent the sum of all VMs on a single ESXi host. Finally, hit the Save button. The ESXi host machine will be added to the panel. Next, see how to add an OS template. Try HostingController today.